Bob just texted me and let him know he's having a few tech issues and to start without him, just a heads up. So I know, just want to remind our members, our board members, that Spring, let us know earlier that she will not be attending this meeting. She's away. But I look in front of me and we do have a quorum.
All righty. Let's give Bob another 2 minutes or so.
Okay. I just let him know that we were going to wait, give him a couple more minutes.
This is going to cost him.
It's a good thing I'm able to text him. I couldn't help it. I just couldn't help it.
Ouch. Sorry. That's my cell phone falling down on the floor, which I'm now putting down here, out of reach.
Toby, what kind of shirt is that? That was cool.
It's state of Colorado.
Oh.
So it's the Rocky Mountain Range, and then these are the colors of the flag.
Okay. That totally makes, yeah, now I got it.
Amy went to Colorado for a conference a couple years ago, and all I got was this t-shirt, which I happen to really like.
Right, yeah, no kidding. That's great.
It's cheery.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should go.
Yeah, I do too.
I move
All
to
right.
approve the agenda.
All right. That seconds that.
I
All in
second that.
favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. And I have to bring my spectacles here because my screen's really small today for some reason. So now we go to public comment, and we are going to have some letters read into the record by Slade, and the school board does not respond to public comment because it's not on our agenda. This is per COVID practices that have been in place for several months now.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, board chair. Welcome everybody to the board meeting. I will start, there's 3 letters this evening. I'll start with one from David Hackett, Dear Board of Directors. I'm surprised that the board is continuing to consider adoption of Resolution 786, which delegates the board's authority to repeal or suspend policy to the superintendent. There are at least 3 reasons why this resolution must be rejected. First, the superintendent continues to misrepresent that Resolution 7086 is a WASDA recommended resolution. To the contrary, the September 4th, 2020 policy alert from WASDA that originated this resolution lists 2 other model policies as essential and 4 more as encouraged, where 786 is merely discretionary. It is unclear why the superintendent would ignore the 6 essential and encouraged policy changes to present you with a discretionary policy that vastly increases his power. 2 other community members and I spoke with him about these issues on the phone last Thursday. He freely admitted that he does not read the proposed resolutions with any detail, nor does he fully understand them. I find this admission both cavalier and astonishing. As the district's chief executive officer, a superintendent must have a firm understanding of existing policies and any proposed policies that he submits for the board's consideration. Second, Resolution 76 remains poor public policy. Our model of government relies on checks and balances, not blind trust. It is often inconvenient to obtain the assent of legislative bodies like this board, but it is a crucial necessary check on the superintendent's executive power. Because appropriately concerning the superintendent's actions through binding policy as our democratic norm, the burden should be on those that propose to abandon this norm by granting the superintendent extraordinary powers. At your last board meeting and during my call with the superintendent, No one has been able to come up with a single example where these emergency powers would be necessary because the board cannot meet in time to decide the question. This leaves 786 violating norms without a purpose. Indeed, there is no need for the superintendent to decide to waive board policy because state law allows the board to convene immediately in an emergency without 24 notice to decide such issues. See RCW 42.30.080 parentheses 4. Board may call a special meeting without notice in an emergency. The fact that the board passed a similar resolution without comment in spring 2020 does not justify repeating the mistake. Finally, Resolution 786 plainly violates Washington law. Under RCW 28A.150.230, this board is vested with the final responsibility for the setting of policy. See also RCW 28A.320.015. The board holds broad discretionary power to determine and adopt written policies not in conflict with other law that provide for the development and implementation of programs, activities, services, or practices. The gist of Resolution 786 is to delegate the board's plenary authority over policy to the superintendent, who would be granted discretion to suspend existing board policies if suspension is necessary to implement the adopted reopening plan or is necessary for ongoing compliance with written guidance from various agencies relating to safely opening schools while containing COVID-19. Because school districts are special purpose districts with power strictly limited by statute, this delegation is illegal. As noted by our Supreme Court, it has been long the law in Washington that when a statute confers special functions to school boards, those functions may not be delegated to others unless the statute expressly authorizes such delegation. A school board may not divest itself of powers and duties specifically placed within its exclusive control by statute. A delegation of the school board's powers and duties can only occur if authorized by the legislature. Lake Washington School District number 414 versus Lake Washington Education Association, Washington Education Associates 109, WN period 2D 427-431, 1987, emphasis added, internal citations omitted, because there is no statute specifically authorizing school boards to grant emergency powers to superintendents to suspend district policy. The delegation proposed in Resolution 786 is patently illegal. I understand that the board's good faith in considering Resolution 786, but the road to hell is always paved with good intentions. I would urge you to reject this resolution, or at the very least table it so that you can obtain a legal opinion from the district's counsel. Thank you for considering these points. David Hackett. Okay. I'm going to read the next comment by Barb Rhodes Weaver. Dear Board of Directors, I write because I am not only disappointed but outraged to learn that you are even considering delegating the board's authority to repeal or suspend district policies to the superintendent. See Resolution 786. If you are so intent on abdicating your duty and responsibility for setting Vashon Island School District policies, I implore you to simply resign. The School District Board of Directors is elected and accountable to the local community and its electorate for the proper operation of the district. RCW 28A150230. Each of you was elected. The superintendent was not. It is the elected school district board of directors, i.e. you, that is vested with the power and responsibility to set district policies. If you no longer want to serve and carry out your duties, please resign instead of making an illegal attempt to abdicate your duties. Unless you or the school district's lawyers can point to a statute that expressly authorizes the delegation of your final responsibility for setting school district policies, such delegation is illegal. See Lake Washington School District number 414 versus Lake Washington Education Association 109 WN.2D 427, 437, 1987. The superintendent is neither elected nor accountable to the local community and its electorate. The superintendent is an employee hired by the school district to execute the policies set by the elected school district board of directors. Separation of powers is fundamental to our form of government. It is disturbing that our elected school district board of directors appears set to wantonly and recklessly abdicate their duties. If you cannot point to the statute that specifically authorizes you to delegate your authority to the superintendent to set school district policies, you must reject Resolution 786. If you cannot articulate a scenario in which you would be unable to carry out your duties, assuming you're willing to carry out your duties, then there is no reason to attempt any legal delegation of emergency powers to the unelected superintendent, and you should reject 786. I appreciate your willingness to serve and understand that you may no longer wish to continue in your service. I urge you to resign instead of legally attempting to delegate your responsibility for no apparent reason. Barb Rhodes Weaver. Okay, our last comment for the evening. This is from Comunidad Latina de Vashon. Dear VISD, hold on, sorry. VISD has the opportunity to do better, to see our community for their strengths and share the power you have with the community who is the most underrepresented and underserved. It is VISD responsibility to change the policies, procedures, and structures that perpetuate the structural racism that is present at Vashon Island School District. The discrepancies that we have brought to your attention since before COVID and at every focus group meeting are a result of institutional racism that is preventing low-income and students of color from having the environment opportunities that they need to be educationally successful. Comunidad Latina de Vashon is a space where Latino community members turn to be seen, heard, and centered as we are able to build trusted relationships with families where they can speak freely, recognize their resilience, and stand in their power. We want our community to have that same sense of belonging that they have here at CLV at their schools. A sense of belonging is part of equity. You say you hear us. The superintendent has said he wants to work from a stance of co-creation and shared power. We see you nodding your heads, but what appears to be listening is not followed with action. The community is tired of lip service and desires transparency and accountability in regards to how the district is spending its racial equity budget. We want to create lasting elements of change in systems, but that requires mindfulness of non-white working family experiences through an openness to hearing from community and dedication to taking their stories seriously. Emails, survey links, or text messages aren't good enough. Our community does not want surface level efforts and want to assure that initiatives made about us are decided by us. VISD needs to stop leaving the Latino community behind and give space for collaborative efforts with CLV. CLV wants to partner with VISD, but not in the way that VISD has thus far promoted. We want VISD to go beyond focus groups and a one-leader model and instead be open to community leaders and co-creation. Ignoring the community's request to be part of the development and selection of a Latino family advocate by posting job descriptions without once reaching out to the community is not co-creation. Building a bilingual tutoring support system without respecting the community's request to be at the forefront of tutor selection and training is not co-creation. Having an equity plan that was not informed by the community is not creation or co-creation or sharing power. Building programs and systems without sharing power is not a sustainable approach to equity. Our youth and adult leaders are ready to participate in action-based change, but VISD needs to reflect and challenge their belief of what it means to be genuinely involved in the community and share decision-making power. We ask VISD, the superintendent, school board administration, and staff to authentically reflect on what racial equity means, not only during COVID and online learning, but long-term. When we ask you to collaborate with Comunidad Latina de Vashon, we are not asking you to heed the voice of its staff. We are asking you to listen to and center CLV voice as a megaphone for the voice of VISD Latino families. We are here to be a resource to VISD to build genuinely equitable measures which lead to thriving for Latino students, and our challenges to you are an invitation to partner in a way that is actually anti-racist and not performative activism. It is beyond time to center impact, not intention. Comunidad Latina de Vashon. Thank you for those 3 letters, and that concludes public comment.
All right, and that will bring us to the superintendent report, and Slade will present that now.
Let me kind of recenter here just a moment. Okay. Okay. To open my superintendent report this evening, I humbly make a land acknowledgement. I would like to recognize and acknowledge the indigenous people of this land, the Puyallup Tribe of Indians. At this meeting, we pay respect to the Puyallup Tribe of Indians and to their elders past, present, and emerging. I wanted to discuss this evening a wonderful project and partnership that is growing here in the district and here on the island called Everyone Counts. And I met with Vashon Nature Center early in, gosh, probably August, and Bianca Perla and Maria Metler were really building this amazing program for all of our students. And as you know, Vashon Nature Center works in all 3 buildings across all grade levels practically. And this was another opportunity for them to kind of expand on what I had seen a project at the high school. But in short, they are holding a 12-week course on the study of Salish Sea Biodiversity Network. And it's essentially a nature observation course, a self-reflection and mindfulness course. And we have course mentors that are going to be engaged in this. I just received an email this evening from Maria Metler. I signed up for this, and I would encourage everyone to sign up for Everyone Counts. Hopefully, Jody is showing, yes, she is, good. You can see the flyer there. You've seen emails from us today. You've seen emails from Vashon Schools Foundation. We're partnering with them to raise funds. There's been seed money that has got the project started, but we're not near our goal yet of $5,000. To acknowledge Windermere Realty for a significant gift of $2,500, and essentially matching any dollars going, that will get us to our goal of $5,000. This program is also geared towards our Latino families. There's a bilingual mentor. Her name is Vole Martinez, and also one of our island's resources for mental health, Andra DeVote. She's been collaborating with Bianca and Maria. It's going to end on December 11th. This project's going to culminate with a roundtable discussion with a UW professor, Christopher Schell. And just a huge shout out and thanks to VSF, Vashon Nature Center. And what's amazing about this program is that one reason why I want to encourage folks to participate in it is you're really participating in citizen science, the true essence of that. And the data that we collect here on the island is going to be contributing to a much larger database. And I'm expecting that this project will grow and grow. Primarily it is focused on our students and our families. I'm looking forward to starting it tomorrow. But really, anyone that's tuned in tonight, if you want to pass this along, we're going to put this up again on Facebook. If you want, anyone can participate, and so it's free and open to everybody. And so it's just it's a very unique opportunity, and I hear people say it's very Vashon. So
and it's outdoors.
Right, and it gets us outdoors. And even if you're not able to get outdoors, Bianca has talked about this project can work for someone in the city or someone that might be in an apartment or who may not have a large outdoor space to do their sit plot. They could use their window. And it really is about reflection and observation, being still, which is a skill that many of our students have trouble with. I just want to give a shout out to them and recognize them, and once again, Vashon Schools Foundation for really taking some of the lead on fundraising and supporting the program. And Schools Foundation has been supporting Vashon Nature Center programs in our systems for quite some time, so this seemed like a real natural fit for us. So I encourage everybody to get out there and participate. Any questions about Everyone Counts? Just kind of curious, have you signed up yet? Okay, who's about? Toby, have you signed up yet?
I have not yet.
Not signed up yet.
I have seen the
Okay.
emails come out.
Okay, it's easy to sign up yet. It's easy to sign up, and there's plenty of time. Okay.
Yeah, and it doesn't take a lot of money to fund the program. If we just got $10 per student, that would be enough to fund the program for everyone to be able to participate. So it's a modest goal, and we're really hoping people will help us bring in the rest of the budget for it.
Mm-hmm. I got some last minute information today that I want to highlight for our community and for the board. In my superintendent meeting recently, there was a lot of concern in our region around the lack of availability for SAT testing. Many districts don't have any sites. And some of what we've been hearing from College Board or from the state is that, most schools are going to kind of waive that SAT requirement. But as we've learned, it's really not as simple as that. Many scholarships require SAT, some placements require SAT scores. And so the SAT is very connected still to our, to many systems for our college going students. And so, or those who are, considering college and want to take this test. But I'm just going to share with you part of some information that I received today from Lisa Miller. So they ran the SAT yesterday with close to 35 seniors having the opportunity to come on campus and take it after having 2 tests canceled. And as you can imagine, the stress that that puts on seniors and their families. They did it 5 students per room, multiple people involved with Sarah and Elizabeth, checking to make sure they had the attestations and doing temperature checks, and the assistant principal Gus, the admin on site welcoming the students first thing and spacing them out, filling in for whatever was needed. Paul Peretti, the test coordinator, making sure that everything ran smoothly. Teachers Sarah Powell, Jason Butler, Susan Swan, Andy James, Matt Tilden, Andy Sears, and Tara Vanselo, proctoring, Lisa as well, and Stephanie Spencer, from the district office, went over and proctored as well. So it was really, also acknowledging custodial and maintenance helped with the setup, and food services stayed open late to provide free lunches for the kids when they were finished. And so it was really just a all hands on deck experience, and I'm just happy that our seniors were able to have an opportunity to take it. I don't know what the next, I think January or February may be the next testing date. Hopefully we can do the same, where the restrictions are such that we can do small groups and bring in kids who still need to take that exam. So yeah.
I remember the SAT being really stressful. Like one of those
Yeah.
things I can remember going and taking the SAT. And so I can imagine how challenging it must have been for the students sitting for that. And glad that we were able to provide that.
Yeah.
Slade, can you count up how many adults were there? There were 35 students, but how many adults were there?
Sure, I can do that. Let's just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 at least. So, yeah.
Thank you to all those adults making
Yeah, and
that possible.
like Toby said, it gets even more stressful when you don't have unlimited opportunities either. So not that students want to take SATs times, but we do, that is kind of one of the fallbacks, is that you can basically not submit your score if you don't want to and try again. Kind of upcoming events, just to put it on everybody's radar. I'll go through a couple things that are happening in October. October 8th, our regular board meeting. October 9th is our district-wide, it's a non-student attendance day. It's a Friday, and it's a teaching and learning forum. And that day is going to be focused on racial equity, social-emotional learning, pardon me, and tech, instructional practices. And so I'd really encourage the board, if they can, to make it to the morning session from 8:30 to 10. That's going to be led by Dr. Tanisha Brandon Felder, who is the Director of Equity Engagement for Shoreline. And so Stephanie had an opportunity to attend some of her workshops and felt like she would be a really good fit. And Dr. Tanisha Brandon Felder is eager and excited to work with us. So if you can, put it on your calendar. I'll send an email out again, but October 9th from 8:30 to 10. And then the 13th is our board retreat. Amy Cast, who is the WASDA leadership consultant, who's also, interestingly enough, a board director as well for Lake Washington. She's going to be joining us for the retreat and leading us, and we should have a draft agenda soon. So I will get that out to you as soon as possible. And then the final date in October is October 22nd, which is our other board meeting. So that, at this point in time, concludes my superintendent's report, notwithstanding everything else that's going to happen later on in the board agenda.
All right, thank you for that. That brings us to board member remarks. And I think we'll start with Bob tonight.
No, fair. You started with me last time.
You're right. She did.
I don't have anything. I had intended to talk a little bit about how we get things on the board agenda, but I think we can do that under new business. So absent that, I don't have anything to say.
All right. And then I got Toby next.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to see you. Good to be here tonight. As I've been, reflecting on the opening of school and comments people have made, it's really clear to me how traumatic the experience is that we're all going through as individuals and as a community. And, for us to effectively wrestle through issues that we have in front of us, we're going to have to be really creative and mindful about how we develop relationships, and deeper into the community. Particularly the letter from Comunidad Latina Vashon tonight highlights that, and some of the frustrations and lack of trust and calls for transparency, and these are all things that we need to be mindful about. And the timing's great, right? This is work that we have on our plate. We have intentions and schedules and agendas lined up in front of us to address this, and I'm very excited about that. So just recognizing that it's a hard time, and I think it's okay to acknowledge that. And I'm interested and excited to do that hard work so that we can make meaningful progress.
Great. Thank you,
Yeah.
Toby.
Yeah, thank you.
How about Zabet?
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here as well. Danny and Gus, I thought, did a great job at the high school welcome when there were like 205 people on that call, which was, I thought they did a great job. So thanks to them for that. I had the opportunity to hear one of Lori Hennessy's League of Education Voters, the listening session yesterday.
Great.
That was really interesting. It was about racial equity and just listening to these leaders, these very articulate, really, really interesting people talk about education and being Black in education. So it was fascinating, but there were a couple points I just wanted to share. I thought that, I'm like, as always, like writing all these notes down, but Dr. Thelma Jackson, she said two things that really struck me. One was, it's all good to have all this money. If you have money, that's great. You can get, well-funded schools. But really, the most important thing you need is love. You need to have that connection with an adult. You need to have a connection with whatever it is, of that like love and respect. And it just really resonated. Like, yes, it is very, very important to have all the policies, and it's important to have all the structure, and it's important to have the funding. For God's sakes, it's crucial to have the funding. But let us not forget, and that's what I feel like those 16 people who showed up to help the 35 seniors take the SAT, there's a little bit of love in that, I think. So that was crucial. And then the other thing she said was, what are you willing to do differently? And so hearing the letter from the Comunidad Latina was Vashon, it was great. It just was really, and I echo, Toby, what you said. Like, this is, we can talk all we want, but we've got to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. I also just quickly wanted to thank Yumi. I don't know if she's on this call. I don't think I see her, but for her, people in the public may not know that she's brought up an interesting issue about privacy and, with all of this, and she's not the first person to think of it, hopefully, and hopefully we can just cross our T's and dot our I's about that. But I just wanted to thank her for bringing that up, and I think that is it. Thank you.
Thanks for
Okay.
sharing that, Zabet.
Thank you, Zabet.
Thanks, Beth.
And again, Spring had another commitment and is not able to be with us tonight. And my comments are just short and sweet to, again, acknowledge all of our educators and paraeducators and staff and people helping the remote schooling that's happening be successful. Bob and I will talk a little bit more about our virtual tour of Chautauqua here in a few minutes, but what I'm seeing there and online in my own home looks like school, sounds like school. So I think there's a huge amount of gratitude to be expressed to everyone who's been able to help us get up and running in some fashion and be educating and have a sense of stability and some normal and access to help families and kids who need the help. You know, some of the districts around us are just now starting their first week of classes. So I think we can be very proud of how far we've come to this point. There's certainly no shortage of things that can be worked on to be improved, but I think we should pause and recognize that I think we've been very successful to this point in time, and we're going to keep minding the store closely and ensure that that continues. But, you know, good for us. You know, the people in this district and the families have put together to make it happen. It is happening, and I think it feels pretty good so far. So that's all I wanted to say is, again, a big debt of gratitude to everyone who's played a part in helping us get off the ground and get this crazy new thing up and flying and keeping it in the air. And that concludes board member remarks. So we'll move now to resolution 786. And Slade, do you want to remind us one more time the scope of this policy?
Sure. Once again, this policy comes from WASDA and has been.
It's a resolution, not a policy.
Sorry, you're right. The resolution, I know there's P's and R's behind numbers, and so this is an R. The resolution comes from WASDA and also endorsed by PSESD, and it really is meant to give the board and myself flexibility if there's a part of reopening schools that we need to adjust according to guidance from OSPI or LNI or the Department of Health, and we're not and we don't know, you know, we're not prepared for that, then we're able to suspend policies related to, you know, related specifically to that clause in the resolution. WASDA gives us, you know, this gives us this resolution in order to help districts move forward, prepare for the unpreparable. I understand the concerns, but I'm willing to answer any more questions from the board. But if there's any more questions, I'll answer them. Or if there's any more discussion, please have it. But I will be recommending to the board to adopt this resolution.
The duration of time this resolution covers, if enacted?
Yeah, the resolution reads that this will end December 31st, 2020.
And this resolution only deals with reopening of schools?
Correct.
And you will immediately notify the board should you feel a need to enact this resolution in any way?
Yes.
And if we knew what we could potentially be using this document for, we would write a policy about that issue, but the intent is to cover the unforeseeable because we are in an unprecedented situation. Is that correct?
Yes. We did do some, I said Bob did some due diligence with WASDA, and this has been, maybe I'll just let you speak to that, Bob, rather than me try to put words.
Yeah, for transparency purposes, I had heard of emails. I apologize. I have not been able to read them. I was busy with my day job all day. But when I had a discussion with Zabet, to call you out, about the concern, and so I was able to. I was prepared, and I just, for transparency for everybody else, I was prepared to say let's hold off, and if there are any question whatsoever about the legality of this, then let's hold off. But I was able to reach WASDA, who told me late this afternoon that it had been reviewed by the State Attorney General's office, and he assured me that this has been vetted, and hence I am prepared to support it.
Yeah, you talked to Tim Gershow, who's the CEO, or who's the president of WASDA, not just a guy at WASDA.
It was actually a guy standing out front. No, I'm sorry for being. Yes, he is the executive director, I believe, is his title of WASDA, and he was kind enough to take my call late this afternoon while he was preparing for a statewide conference. So
Right. Right.
Is there any, go ahead, Toby.
Yeah, I've kind of gone around on this one, back and forth, and I personally recommend that we table this, or I'm going to vote no. And I think this is the reason why. I think that for larger districts that aren't as agile, this might prove quite useful. I can't think of any event where we can't hold a meeting in the course of an hour or two to get a quorum together and review what needs to happen. And so I'm not sure it is particularly necessary for us.
Well, the event
That's my hesitancy.
I understand. I respect that. I guess the thing that comes to mind is if a quorum is, if we're incapacitated by COVID, what if we all get COVID?
You have bigger problems to deal with.
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this? Do we have a motion? Oh, go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
Just that to reinforce that Slade is aware of the policies and he is committed to, I mean, I have gone back and forth, just so you know, Toby, and everybody else. The best arguments not to do this are, yes, we could convene a board meeting in about 15 minutes notice if we wanted to. True. But also, there's what are we guarding against? What are we fearful of is what I keep coming back to. What is the danger? We know the upsides of flexibility. I did a little cost benefit, and what are the downsides? And I can't think of any downsides that are realistic, to be honest. Slade could have run roughshod over our graduation policies, I suppose, or something, but I just don't feel that there's any great risk. I, as you all know, am very cautious about delegating authority, and I am very protective of the board's prerogatives, but I'm also sensitive to the fact that what's the worst that can happen here? So with the amendments that have been added since first reading, respectfully, Toby, I can't disagree with you. It's a 51-49 for me, but like I said earlier, I will be supporting it.
Okay. Tibet, do you want to weigh in on anything?
Sorry. No, I mean, I agree. I think that Reagan, I think that your example, while it's really out there of we all get COVID, is sort of the reason why we're doing this. It's that kind of like way out there. I mean, and I think, I was talking to Bob about it. I feel like the chances that we'll actually use this are 1 in a million, please. But it would be a bummer not to be, if 3 of us were out and we can't get a quorum. So I'm with Bob. I agree. I mean, this is not. This is sort of seems like, 51-49. I'll support it. But I actually want to move on to other things. Like I want to talk about racial equity, and I want to talk about how kids are getting, students are getting. I mean, I know what I mean. I kind of want to move on. Just kind of want to get on to like how the day-to-day is going and what we can do for our kids right now.
Remember those words, I'm with Bob Zabet.
I didn't say that. Oh, damn, Jody's recording this. I'm with you, Bob.
All right. Are we done discussing this resolution? If so, can I have a motion to pass resolution 786?
And I'll second.
All in favor of passing 786?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So resolution 786 passes. Slade, you will keep
Toby,
us surprised.
Toby,
I think you have to say all opposed.
Oh, sorry, all opposed. Sorry, Toby. I forgot you were going to oppose. Sorry.
That's right. I'm opposed. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So we're still three yeses and one opposed, so it does pass. All right, moving on then.
Toby getting all
Slade, you'll keep us
mavericky.
apprised if anything happens with that.
That's right.
All right, so now we come to Matt's part of the evening for an update on business and operation. Hi, Matt.
Hello all, good to see you. Thanks, Reagan. Provided to you is our normal monthly financial reports, budget status report, and enrollment. Of course, we discussed enrollment at the September 10th meeting, and we will be, I think Slade will be touching upon it at his school reopening update also. That said, if we look at the financial dashboard, Jody, pull that up. We're at 99% of the year. This is through the end of the year, through the end of August. And I always put 99% up there because, as you know, whether it be your personal finances or us as a school district, invoices, bills, balancing, reconciling of our finances are taking place as we speak. So if we look at our expenditures, they're about 98.6% of budget. And our revenues are about 98.7. Take those with a grain of salt. You can take them, look at them for the end of August for the 12-month period, but we are, like I said, in the process of reconciling those financials. And we'll present that tidy package, our year-end financial picture at the October 22nd meeting. As a whole, if we do look at this, it looks fairly good. It's where we thought we would be about 6 months ago when COVID hit. And everything is basically falling into place. There are, of course, always ups and downs of percentage of budget if you look at the far right side. But as a whole, everything is looking really good for fiscal year 19 and 20. Anecdotally, as Kay and I are reconciling the books, we look to end the year with a fund balance of right around 1.5 million-ish. We had estimated that year-end fund balance to be about 1.56, so we should be pretty darn close, which is great. If you want to touch on the enrollment, we can, but I know Slade is going to touch upon that with the school reopening.
Sorry, Matt.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob, rudely interrupting. 6.5. Forgive me. I'm rusty on this stuff. 6.5% fund balance. What is fund balance these days?
That would be at 6.5% with our budget of about what, 24.1 million. I think that is about 1.56.
But 6.5 is the number
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And just a quick clarification too, Bob. I can't remember if, like, when you came on board, the policy states the minimum of 5%, but a goal of 6.5. So, right, just to be clear with the community, it's a goal, not a minimum.
So we're not actually at 6.5. We're closer to 5 though, right, Matt?
We may
It'll be
end the year
close.
quite close to 6.5 as we reconcile our books. I don't want to get too far in front of those type of estimates and predictions, but we will come pretty darn close, which is just outstanding for this year, considering everything that's been thrown at us.
I'm sorry for hijacking this, but why? That's my want. Why a goal as opposed to a minimum? That was back in the day.
Yeah,
It was
Wasn't
kind
that
of a
long
hard.
ago.
It was a hard number, or something we really sought to manage to, and it sounds like 6.5 is a little softer or more aspirational. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think, at the time, it's an interesting time, right? When we're looking at fiscal uncertainty, dramatic shortfalls in the state, and that's our reality now. It wasn't our reality back then. And so there was concern about if we move too much money into the fund balance, then we are, which is not it. Some people think it's the rainy day fund. It's actually a funding mechanism for our payroll on a month-to-month basis that covers, the different dips and valleys and mountains of our budget during the year. But back then, there was concerns and not wide support for a large balance because of programming. You wanted to put more funds into programming and into positions. You know, and now, you know, now the landscape has changed, and, you know, those districts that have larger fund balances are going to be able to withstand the, you know, the kind of the economic shortfalls that we're going to see probably in the next 2 or 3 years. So
This is a serious discussion. I think I would love to have it when our next budget process starts. I will.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
But,
I would second that, Bob. I agree.
it's a good, but it's just a good point to bring up, and so let's make sure we cover.
I would like to add in regard to enrollment, and Slade, you may touch upon this in your reopening update. I don't want to take too much from you.
No, go for it.
OSPI over the last several weeks, and probably due to the screams and pleads of the larger districts around us that are also doing distance learning, has, I guess lack of a better term, softened how we account for enrollment. And we meaning specifically, but we as in OSPI, and how we report that. For us, that means we have added a rough estimate at this point, but we're looking at the delta between what FTE, you know, what students leave to what we gain, probably around 6 to 8 extra students. So as you look at that, we're at a minus 14 as of the 1st of September. But of course, we will have more information, obviously the 1st of October, but that will help us in regard to enrollment, hence finances and funding.
And enrollment counts every month?
Yes, correct.
Matt, would you, or Jody, would you scroll up just to one more line? Sorry, yeah. So Matt, do you want to say what Kay was saying? Because I just so the board members are clear. Do you see where that line about, you know, the 17 kids in special ed and how that's actually not 17 because of the way the accounting, the counting now is different?
What line are we looking at specifically?
Oh, where Jody has conveniently has her mouse.
Oh, got it right there. I'm going to take a look at that. Why we are off 17 kids.
So because from Kay was saying that it, in fact, there aren't 17. We aren't down 17 because I was talking about this at the last board meeting. Like, where have all the special ed children gone? We know that they're still there. I don't want them to get lost. And in fact, the way the state is doing it, she's reporting 2 numbers, and so it's not quite 17. It is more. Slade, do you remember what it was? It was like we're down
7.
by like
I think 7.
6 or 7
Yep.
special ed kids, and so not 17. Anyway, a minor point, but I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and as the months, I think you almost nailed it. There's a bit as the months go on. Also, as you notice, like running stars, we won't know those numbers until October. So just solidify these months moving forward. Hence, that's why the state doesn't, how should we say, count our enrollment truly in regard to dollars and cents until January, because they're giving us those kind of running up months, if you will, to make sure they have a solid estimate of our enrollment.
But really good news that we are able to count students until the last day of September. So
I would agree.
Yes, thank goodness. All right, does anyone have any more questions for Matt?
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, and now we have racial equity policy 3212 that Slade's going to present.
Yeah, so it's really, you know, kind of the beginning of a discussion, and we, just to let you know, Zabet and Spring and I have been discussing our racial equity work. They're both part of the district racial equity team, and Spring also represents on Friends and Family. And I've also been in discussion with administration, and we feel like this is a moment where we want to, there's been some significant work, and you know, Nikam Pan from PSESD came and did quite some extensive work before I arrived. Our teams have been thriving. We now have a new student racial equity team, but we're really needing some direction. And I think Bob brought up our policy last time, and I've had some conversation with Toby as well. And there are some aspects of the policy that I do believe could be improved. We are moving in a direction, though, to bring on another third party to really help the district move the work forward. And I'm interested in doing what is oftentimes called an equity audit. Really someone that can come in and make visible what may not be visible. And some of the initial data, that we're just providing the board today are really just starting points for discussions. I'm hopeful. Right now we have from the PSESD, Feliciana Peralta, who is the executive director for equity in education. She's reached out to me, and we're going to be meeting next week to talk about some initial planning moves that we make. All this is kind of concurrent to our own district strategic planning, and I feel like we can't wait on this. And at the same time, I would want our strategic planning process to drive a lot of this work. And so I'm really just setting us up for some initial conversation this evening. This is not leading to any particular, maybe actions. It's kind of, for me, laying the landscape. And I was interested actually when, I initially went out and looked at the policy, and in the policy, there is the bullet that talks about promoting representative diversity of access and participation in academic courses, activities, and school events. And so I thought that was a place where I could start to provide the board some data. And, I worked with Andy Sears on the athletic, and then Sherry Mitra and I worked on the academic courses data. And so I kind of wanted to know, what stood out to you in particular, or what stands out to you? Do you have thoughts about our policy and some of the direction? And I'd like to take some notes tonight, and then I think this is going to hopefully be part of our retreat as well. But so that's what I'm interested in. I mean, I can go over the data with you, but I know you've also read the data, and maybe a discussion or just what stands out to you is actually more interesting to me than me just telling you the numbers and what I see.
I have a comment or a reflection.
Yeah.
When we passed this in 2017, remember there were some comments at the time that this was just a fad, and kind of appeasing the social winds and concerns, and glad that we adopted it. And it's interesting, I hadn't looked at it in a long time, and so when it was in the board pack, went back and reflected on it, and I don't have a recommendation of how to change it, but it feels a little bit dusty, like it needs to be cleaned up a bit, and maybe a little bit more meat added to it, particularly in areas where we know we can monitor some of the results, and whether they're what we expect or not. If we can start looking at the results that we can measure over time, then we can know what changes are making a difference. So I like that you started providing some of that data. I also realized that we might, as individuals and as a board and as a school community, have the love required that Dr. Thelma Jackson recommends or requires, but we're not experts at this. And so I really think bringing in some third-party leadership to help us reassess the direction and the activities to make more progress is going to be very helpful.
Can I ask just a quick, I know there's some provenance to this too, or some history to it that I don't know. Do you know if our community of color was engaged in the process of writing the policy at the time?
I don't think so.
Oh yeah, we got I think a very good draft, and Spring was involved, and she was not on the board then, so she's much more conversant with sort of the development of it. But we got a draft that I understood, and I think Kevin probably, not to put you on the spot, Kevin, if you're there. My understanding was there was a lot of input, but that's my understanding. And so anyway, that's in answer to your question, there was. And then the draft was just pared back a little bit. I did some wordsmithing, and this is what you see.
It actually may have been concurrent with the formation of the racial equity team or committee about the same time. And now that you mention it, Bob, it may have gone through a cycle in that. Do you remember, Isabel?
The friends and family, they started this basically, but then, right, that's what you're saying. And then the friends and family of racial equity, and then the policy started, and then it sort of, yes, and then it morphed into, then we sort of started with the school, and with NECOM, working with NECOM, and it was very small. And that's, you know, that's the thing, is that this work it's been so slow. It's been frustrating. It's been so slow. And so it's time to kind of notch it up. That's why I'm looking forward to having this you know, sort of equity audit and see how we're doing. And I, you know, that's why getting the Latino community involved in this right now, because they were not very involved in it.
Right.
Yeah. I recall. Yeah, I recall that the draft wording of the policy itself was borrowed from another district, and it was tailored to some degree. But at that time, there was no program to insert benchmarks or what it was going to look like. It was still in the creation stage. So I think now, 3 years later, we actually have a racial equity program in 3 buildings. We have data, which we didn't have in 2017 at all. And now we can start setting the measures by which we're going to be able to tell if we're effective or not. So I think this probably needs to be spruced up with the current program in mind, both as it stands and now as we'd like to see it expanded, with the input of the communities that it's meant to most directly represent, as our families of color, and how they're integrated into the general school experience in an equitable basis. So I think that's probably, this is sort of like the first draft of the canned language, and now it needs to become Vashon's language, both functionally and aspirationally, with measures so that we know whether we're achieving or not, and who's going to make that call.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll just kind of remind the board, you know, typically at the beginning of the year, well, so the last 2 years, Stephanie has presented data to the board on this policy on the first bullet. You know, this year we're a little handicapped because we don't have the SBA data from last year. But and this is what I do remember, that we are not seeing improvements. And so, you know,
right.
that's the, I think that's the, you know, like what you're talking about is I don't know, we're in a moment of time where we want to see change, and
Right.
this is an
right.
opportunity.
So, and you know, I think that, not to get too into it, but you know, we were talking about with spring, we were talking about how our numbers in terms of oh God, my brain, in terms of oh my God, oh, menopause, I hate you.
Use your words.
Discipline, thank you.
Eyebrow.
Discipline. In terms of discipline, our numbers are great.
I don't know.
But
I'm studying them.
What? But it's like, but then if you peel back, you know, is it great because we have less kids of color, you know, and is, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, we just need to dig in, and like, why aren't, you know, like, what's going on? And it's really nice that a bunch of white people are talking about this, you know, so we need to, you know, move on. And
that's been a part of the discussion that I'm really trying to bring in, and other superintendents and I share some of these frustrations that, okay, so I have some positive movement in the last, you know, just this year from last year, and students represented in AP classes, and, you know, like, so there seems, you know, from last year to this year, more students of color participating in our honors classes and some of our band and Riptide yearbook. But the bottom line is that actually going to translate to academic opportunities? Is it going to translate to this, you know, kind of lessening or eliminating this idea that race predicts a student's, academic outcomes. And so that's I think collecting data and monitoring that data is the start. I think it goes deeper than that. I'm not like if we change all this and make improvements on how students are participating in extracurricular activities and events, I want to know that's actually going to lead to more opportunities for students when they graduate and go across the stage. I'm in complete agreement that over the last 2 years, we've seen, 3 years ago, we saw the Latino graduation rate in the 80s. And then the following year it dropped, and then the following year it dropped even a little bit further. And so, we at the same time, it feels like we've ramped up racial equity work, right? And that something's not making sense and something's not working. And I want to make sure that when we look at our policy and when we do the strategic planning, that we're engaging with everybody that needs to be at the table, but that we're actually, and getting a 2 to 3 year plan from someone who can, maybe help guide us in this work. But I want to see something different and the year after year after year of smarter balance results that are continuously lower for students of color and graduation rates that are now falling. So anyway.
One of the
If I may, hello.
yes, Kevin.
Yeah,
This is Kevin. This is Kevin. Just touching base. Yes. I think what everyone has said has pretty much been accurate. We had the group. We came to the district with racial equity, and I think the difference is once the policy was invoked, it sparked off the activity within the buildings themselves. So that was great. But also what happened was, we lost our facilitator. And then, so we technically have not been truly doing the walk the way that we have, the way it started. And so I think, I don't speak for everyone, but I would say that one of the things that is missing is the active conversation, the dialogue with the people of color in the community. So sitting at the table and actually having a conversation. I would say that the data, I know that we do a lot of things that are driven off the data, but a lot of what you're missing flies under the data. And so I think it's important to continue the dialogue. I would tell you that being part of the Friends and Family, we went to those communities and asked them to be a part of our group, to join us at the table. And so, and that's the truth behind it. For whatever reason, they were reluctant to at the time. And so, and we still continue to push that. But just because of the change of direction, it has changed we've changed course. And so I would say that would be the one thing that I would point out that is truly, I thought was very impactful, because with our facilitator at hand, we did some, we looked at redlining in Seattle, what that looked like. So it brought it up close and personal, to really give you a good feel. And then also, for the people that were at the table, we could speak our truths there. Whereas now it's almost as though we're on the outside looking in as far as racial equity goes. So yes, the policy kicked that off, a lot of good things from that. But then there were some things that were left behind as well that are very important.
Yeah, Kevin, I totally agree that when Nikum was there, the work that we were doing in that room was impactful. I mean, for me, it was very impactful. And it was and I would leave those meetings just with my eyes open wider every time. And Nikum left, he's doing great things where he is, but we need someone at the helm again.
This is Bob. When in terms of going forward, it sounds like there's a great deal of agreement among all of us. And the word co-create comes to mind, and I've heard board members say that, co-create it with the communities. I heard Kevin say it. In terms of going forward, one possible way forward is looking at the 6 bullet points and start looking at data around them. There's 2 pieces here: the policy, which it sounds like there's a fair amount of concurrence that the policy could use a little more rigor. And then there's the look at how we're doing. And I would, for me, it makes sense to start maybe with these 6 bullets and saying, okay, how are we doing on these? Board members can add if there are other data points, but I just really want to know how we've been doing against our aspirational or our goals in 2017, part A, figure out how we're doing, and then part B, have some subset or some group figure out how to improve the policy. And they are, perhaps, I would argue, could go on parallel tracks and not sequential tracks.
Slade, did you have something to say?
No, I was just saying there's 5
It's
points.
5.
Oh,
But
It's
I
5,
will-
not 6.
Okay. I thought that was a hand up there.
But I agree with Bob, and that's kind of where I thought I would start.
remember those words, Slade?
No, I'm hoping that that Feliciana from PSESD can join us sooner than later. And I'd also like to get some just some kind of pragmatic direction, because I know we're going to be kind of simultaneously doing strategic planning. And I don't, obviously this is going to be a focus for us. I don't see us moving away from this. In fact, we want to make it stronger.
Do people agree the parallel tracks? Again, I just kind of pulled that out of my ear, and I want to make sure that other members, that we could operate on parallel tracks. One, evaluating, looking at what we've done, and the second, looking forward, how we can improve the policy. Is that a division of labor that makes sense to people or not?
I think what I want to share is, yes, I can start to get the data, but if I'm able to invite Feliciana to our district and to work with us, I want to make sure that if she has, or if there's a direction that we should be going, I don't want to get too far out in front. Who is going to come in and help us? That's
okay. Fair enough.
That's what I'm thinking.
I think the other thing I'm hearing there, and I guess I'm most interested to hear from Kevin and the other people who are people of color, is what can be done for relationship building to take this out of the realm of an academic exercise, and bring that authentic voice back into the work. If Kevin is feeling like they're standing on the outside watching all of us participate in this exercise, that sounds uncomfortable to me. That's certainly not, I think, what the spirit of the ultimate goal is we want those people integrated, not on the outside watching us do this process. So I know there's been many invitations at various periods of time to bring those communities and those families into the work. And perhaps unsurprisingly, given the history of our nation in terms of social justice, there's maybe not a lot of trust about exerting their time and effort in that way. So, how do we make that happen on our little island to help convince these families that it is worth their time to engage, and that we do want to hear their voice, and we can't get better without their voice. Otherwise, we're just still in our white vacuum and our white worldview. And as much as we're trying to extend ourselves into their world, we really can't do it until we make it our world, and that really requires their participation. So Kevin, if you or your group can think about what we can do in terms of relationship building that would make people feel comfortable in participating again, I think that's kind of step one in terms of having a real authentic change and real results start to happen. Because until there's that trust and participation from that sector, it's really hard for us to move beyond, where we're at right now in terms of trying to, get something up and running. Now we have to make it work, and without that input from the families of color, we're not going to achieve the desired results, frankly.
I I think that's what the,
'Cause it's meant to be. Go ahead, Toby.
I think that's what maybe the third party support that we can get from PSESD can support us in that.
Sure. Oh yeah, no doubt.
And also
I'm sure
that,
that she'll have great ideas, but we
Sorry.
have a community of people that are living with us and have lived with us for decades and have had their own experiences. And yes, this person will help probably the white family side of the bridge, you know, understand how to cross the bridge better, but there's probably a huge component of people of color who already have a pretty good idea of where they'd like to see it go, and maybe just don't have the faith that things will really change to get there. And how do we engage them to help them make that leap of faith?
I think it's best
Right,
to
I
have
think
that
that's
part of the conversation in the
Yeah,
exercise related to racial equity, as opposed to discussing the policy now. I feel like some of our intent and language is probably not where it needs to be, given the goals that we're trying to achieve.
yeah. Well, I
I'm
think it's
uncomfortable.
all part and parcel of the work, and I'm not expecting Kevin to come up with a list of things to do right now, but I'm hoping that,
Please don't call it out to any particular individual who's
No.
not volunteered for this. I think it's making me very uncomfortable.
I think though that this is what the letter that we got, you know, from the community of Vashon is like. This is what they're saying exactly. Like, we have ideas. We want, you know, we're here. Which, as Kevin said, when we first started, the friends and family approached them, and they just weren't ready. They weren't. The stars didn't align at that time, but the stars are definitely aligning now. So it's great. It's great we can move forward with them.
In the interest of, so what can Slade, can you summarize what, I'm interested in next steps and sort of having them
Right.
clarity
I am
about what they
interested
are.
I'm interested in collecting data on these bullets. There's 4 of them that you can collect. The first is academic achievement. So I'm going to work my way through collecting data and again, providing the foundation or baseline information from where we are. Discipline data isn't in here, by the way. And however, I do want the board to know that I'm going to be I'm going to be working with Sherry and Stephanie and the building, admin to get basically a 2015 to now point of perspective. We have that data, at least I think we should. And so I want to see what the trends have been, because again, I want to know some of what I want to know is, since the district's been doing racial equity work, then where are the impacts? Because I see the impacts on individuals, and I hear testimonies, and I see some things changing, but not the way I want to. So that's my first step, Bob. And then I want to bring that to the board on the 8th, and hopefully more
That's
our
perfect.
partners on PSESD.
Perfect. That's very clear.
Yeah.
Even I understood it.
Great. Okay.
And the policy, I'm sorry, and
Go
the policy that's happening too on a timeline that you will determine.
Right. I think there's going to be a larger process that's going to develop the policy.
Okay.
So that's what I'm anticipating.
Okay, good. I'm down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just a school year update. Are you all ready for that?
Sure.
Okay. I'm moving to a document. So if you have a question or you want to raise, if you're raising your hand, I'm not going to see you right now because I'm looking at my report. So just an update, the King County Health Info. And so it's the number of cases per 100,000 in the last 14 days. And as you know, there's a decision-making tree and from the Department of Health, and that indicates the number of cases per 100,000 and ranges that include high, moderate, and low ranges. Right now, ours is 51 per 100,000 in the last 14 days, which puts us into a moderate range. And once the number hit 55 or went below 75, that sparked quite a bit of conversation in the region around hybrid model and and students coming back, and which I'll speak a little bit more to, but I did want to lay the groundwork that is currently where we are in King County, and Vashon is tied to that metric. So some of the important work that's been happening has been with the focus groups. I want to give a shout out to Josephine Hutton and Chris Peliquin, who have been leading the community engagement team. And this was a kind of an interesting notion when we did some initial feedbacks, our surveys to community while we were in closure, and we didn't do it perfectly. Absolutely, there was challenges in just what information did we need and how do we get it. But I envisioned a community engagement team led by the community, and I met with Josephine and Chris, and they're wonderful leaders, and they've been very intentional about their mission and what this group is for. But you should see, or our family should see, a survey moving forward, I believe tomorrow, around what distance learning has been like. And so those results will be analyzed by this group and recommendations made to the admin. And the results of this will also go in front of the reopening team. The reopening team meets on the 6th of October. And so hopefully I will have some results to share with you around the school year and how we're, kind of how our distance learning efforts have been received with our community. And that team meets, is actually meeting once a week, just to let you know. Any questions about the community engagement team? I'm going to go through this kind of, it's informational, but I don't want to ignore if you have questions. Right.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. The next one is the outdoor learning team, and this one's been slow to get off the ground. We have definitely members of the community and the reopening team who are interested in on the team. We're just getting that first meeting set up, and it'll probably be next week. But I don't want to ignore the fact that Vashon Be Prepared has been working with some of our staff members, including Kevin and Margie, around some outdoor space solutions. And the document that we loaded up into here is the results of that work, and essentially providing the district a roadmap of possibilities and options for, not only, how many students could be accommodated in any of these options, but also the cost of the options and some of the feasibility of them. And so kind of typical of Vashon Be Prepared, it's extremely well engineered. And Rick and I met with Rebecca not too long ago to discuss all the options. I am making the decision that we are putting some shelters at each of the buildings for small groups, rather than kind of plan out large kind of transformations of some of our spaces that would require some significant financial costs. I am moving forward in a pretty slow, deliberate way to provide options for our staff. I think it's still too soon to tell what we really think, an outdoor space would be like, or whether a teacher would want to be out in the rain or the cold or the para, in the middle of December. So I'm a little reluctant to build out any significant structures, but we are getting, thanks to Kevin and his team, we are getting structures up at every building so that small groups can come back. And when I say small group, 5 or less, so teacher and 4 students. But if we, go ahead, Zabet.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead, I'm just talking.
So, so if you can make it clear for me, that would be great.
Yeah.
So we have these options, and this is down the road, obviously, but we have this potential option for small groups to meet outside. And would this be kids with IEP? This would be the special ed kids. This would be the youngest kids. This would be ELL kids, and that would be happening even before we become hybrid. This is sort of a very short term. Is that what the plan is? Is that what this is?
Yeah. Well, our focus right now is on those students with those immediate needs, and You know, we brought back ECAP students this week. That's been, I think I mentioned to folks, that's been wonderful to hear. They've had 5-6 students a day downstairs in our ECAP preschool. And so I look down and I see students, little kids wearing masks and little sparkly boots and sparkles and shirts, and sometimes we hear cries and sometimes we hear joys of laughter. And so that's been a real welcome sound to both Jody and I, with the exception of some of the songs that can go on and on and on and on. But I love it. So Zabet, you're absolutely right. Small groups first, our most vulnerable students. We plan on bringing back some students at McMurray tomorrow in small groups who receive special services. And so but we'll be seeing students who receive ELL services, and then students who receive like title math and title reading.
Okay, so this is not, this is what we're doing now. This has nothing to do with the hybrid model, the whole ABA 2-week, blah, blah, blah. This is just like right now, kids who really need extra support.
Right.
Okay.
Small groups are not, I would not consider them in the hybrid model. The hybrid model is meant to describe, larger groups of students back, and not the
indoors.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Right.
Thank you for just clarifying that.
Yeah, that's a good point. As we kind of work through these discussions about outdoor spaces, sometimes it feels to me like the conversation leans towards, if you can't do it outside, it's then our indoor spaces aren't safe. And thanks to Kevin and his crew, and kind of all the hard work, designing spaces and the teachers together, the inside of our buildings, we can accommodate small sizes, small class sizes, and that's hence why we see, when I get to the hybrid, we'll be talking more about that kind of, the emerging schedule of an AB model at all the buildings. So, but the insides of our buildings are safe. We don't want to ignore that we have the space available for students, even in small groups, but we do want to provide options for those educators who want to take students outside, and we're encouraging that. But we recognize that it's also sometimes difficult when you don't have all your teaching materials, the whiteboard. I mean, there's a lot of structure that teachers rely on, all educators, paraeducators as well, that they rely on that indoor space. So outdoor space is better, but it doesn't mean that our indoor space is unsafe. But the outdoor learning team, I want it needs to really be expanded to, it does include Vashon Nature Center and Vashon Wilderness Program. And we're inviting other folks on the island who have experience with bringing students outdoors and teaching them. But the outdoor learning needs to be expanded to, how can we get students outside in meaningful experiences? And we know we may not be teaching collaborative classroom, which is our literacy curriculum. That may not be possible outside, but what is possible? And the experts from the Wilderness Program and Nature Center have generously jumped in and said, when you're ready, when these teams come together, let's start taking advantage of what we have in front of us. So the last group is the Latino Family Advocacy and Support. And I want to recognize this is an opportunity. I appreciate what everybody has said, and especially the board members' comments. I appreciate what Comunidad has said in their letter. I recognize that there may have been, there may be still actions that we're doing that the impact is not matching the intent, and it does feel to me like there's a lack of trust there. I've made continuous outreach to Comunidad, especially the last few weeks. I have emails out to them to meet. I have emails out to their leadership to meet with their parents, and I have not been receiving any response. They joined the outreach and advocacy group, but I want a stronger relationship, and I'm eager to learn what it is that I may not be doing the right way, because I know it's something. Because we're not coming together, and that's what I want. And so I'm gonna, when I go back tomorrow, and I'm just sharing this with the board, when I come back tomorrow, I'm gonna reach out again and invite, to bring us back to the table to figure out what this, how this could look better. What would a 10 out of 10 look like from from the district in terms of how we collaborate or co-create. Right now, it's true. I have, we have I've solicited for a liaison position. I reached out to the, to the focus group if they had individuals in the community who would like to join us. I haven't heard anything back yet, and so, but there's opportunities that I want to present and supports that I want to put in. I feel like it's hard for me to wait because I have families who need support, and so I want to make sure that I'm addressing them also. So, but I'm gonna double down on my efforts and try to really make this a stronger partnership. This particular group consisted of Comunidad. It consisted of Vashon Youth and Family Services. It's consisted of St. John Vianney. I was really excited to see this group come together, and for the most part, we talked about connections and access for our Latino families. I'm hoping that this group, in whatever shape it forms, because I've invited a co-leader, and I haven't had a member from the community, this group, to be a co-leader. So, but we need this group to move forward, not just connecting students, but really addressing the needs that Comunidad put in front of us, but also additional needs that have been surfaced as well. So we have been making some progress. It's slow. I think I shared with Toby in a conversation that our district wasn't designed to be a bilingual district. And so change is difficult because we're also not funded. We get funded for Title III and our TBIP. It's called transitional bilingual, but the monies are super small and really only provide for the personnel in our district who provide the ELL services. It doesn't even pay for that, I'll be honest with you. So, we're gonna, if the way we want to move forward with this work, the way I'm anticipating it, we're gonna be, taking a closer look at the budget and earmarking more monies, and they're going to be locally funded monies to support students whose home language isn't English. And Stephanie is also one of the first to step up, and we have many families who don't speak English, and they're not just our Latino families. And Mandarin, Syrian, Arabic. So this is a really big and complex challenge for small districts who don't receive funds to scale up any type of services for our students who don't speak English, or English is a second language for them. So, but I'm passionate about the work. I wanna move it forward, and I'm excited to come together. And I think what I saw is that I learned a lot more about what supports were in the community. And next time we come together, I'm hoping that we can, I don't know what, I actually want to leave the agenda open for those to put in, where we feel we need to go. But I'm also interested in doing some family training in the short term, because we have some new translation services. I mean, we're just learning. Technology is moving so fast that we are able to now, I believe, and I don't know all the ins and outs yet, but there is a solution for teachers who do a Google Meet that if a parent at home doesn't speak English, they can have that, and Google Meet does closed captioning, and they can use the closed caption as a translation, kind of a subtitles. It's not perfect. Google Meet, translation or closed captions is not perfect by any means, nor is translation perfect by any means, but I feel like it's a start. And so we also see, I believe there's some solutions for Seesaw, and unfortunately I got a text from Jody at the beginning of our meeting that the interpretation for this meeting wasn't working. And so I see a member here who I know they identified as an interpreter. I'll be interested to find out what was it technology-wise, or what kind of what stopped, because now we can have our board meetings interpreted simultaneously for members who don't speak the English language, so our community. So so the work is slow. This is a tough times. Right now we do have all but I think 2 students right now who have some type of access. I sent an email to the board, and in terms of a complex situation where, John and Rebecca, in terms of trying to get this one family services, family they have internet services, but it's through Ethernet and not through direct connection. And then they have 3 hotspots now, and there were password issues. Rebecca did some counseling with the parents because their teenager doesn't want to go to school and participate in meets. And I know each of you read that situation, and I sent it actually to a couple of community members. I don't want to share too much because I don't want to put any family at risk of confidentiality, but these are really super challenging circumstances, and this is just to get students connected. We still have so many families that their kids fall out of meets. The video lags. I have issues every once in a while with our internet, and these are just going to continue to be challenges that we're going to just kind of take one at a time and get moving on them. But opening school I feel like when I listen to my colleagues has been good for the most part, but that doesn't mean it's been good for everybody. And I can tell you right now that there are families that are struggling, and we do have it all hands on deck in terms of teachers and parents and admin wanting to reach out. I believe tomorrow night they're making more home visits. For students that don't have some connectivity, Rebecca is dropping off offline materials, packets basically at homes. So there's a lot of effort to help folks, and we can probably use more. We could probably use help. And so what does that help look like, and how can we take advantage of that? So
Slade, I had a question. Slade and I think I've talked about this with many people. We have a problem that is a societal geographic problem, i.e. internet for all. And the school district has limited capabilities to address that broader problem. Do we have numbers, actual data with these people flat out have no connectivity. These people have spotty, and I don't know enough about IT to be able to sort of create categories of access. But two-pronged question for you is A, could those categories, indicators of access be developed? And B, can we get hard numbers attached to them and track that?
All right, well, right now we have 0 students who don't have connectivity.
Okay.
But once again, 2 of those students I know are using the internet from the Lutheran Church, right? And we have hotspots coming in. John is also replacing or upgrading all the hotspots in the near future. They're basically being tracked right now. They should come in maybe tomorrow or sometime next week. But the families who do have hotspots right now, we're going to be upgrading them so that we can get them better bandwidth. We're also, John has, with these hotspots, if so we do. We have a plan, Bob. I'm glad you talked about it. It's just a tiered plan. Our first, we needed to get kids, online and make sure that they had access. The second is to address the spotty, kind of internet services, and our teachers and our families, and that's part of what our some of our survey work is going to do is identify who those are. But we're willing to do, with our most vulnerable students, a hotspot per student, and that's the extent that we're prepared to go. And John's going to have the resources to do that. We did get a new grant opened up from OSPI where I don't know the actual source of the monies, but they're coming from OSPI is going to be the funnel through them, but they're working with ISPs and basically providing districts with some funding relief. The grant opened up today, and the way Stephanie described it to me, it's not too specific, so we'll see kind of what relief we're going to get. But the next step is to figure out who the students are who things are dropping off, and we believe we have the means to do that. And then I don't know what's after that. Simultaneously, we're trying to do all the training with, parents are still trying to learn all the different software, and same thing with the teachers. So it's a pretty big task. But
Slade, are people using the helpline?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I know they are. I know they're accessing. I know the building's getting access from the teachers and the staff. They're using their helplines. I don't know how much the helpline is being used for the community, but I know Callan and Carrie work with our community as well. And I don't know how many folks Go Kick is working with. Remember, Go Kick is the organization that works with CommunityDOD.
Because I was noticing in the comments, I don't know if you were tracking this, the comments at the high school welcome Danny and Gus's thing, where there were a couple people who were like, oh, my computer doesn't work, and Gus was saying, come in and swap them out. So I wonder if there's a way to tell people to, like if you're having issues, you don't have to sort of suffer through.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to help.
Yeah, I think the buildings have put that information out, but we could always do better at getting that information out to people.
Yeah, because I haven't seen anything from the high school that says, hey parents.
I think it's been kind of buried in all the.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there's so much stuff going out. Yeah. It's really easy to lose track.
Well, we're in that age where everything seems it's important for everybody to know. So it is difficult, but we can definitely do better at getting that helpline, that help desk information out again. And sometimes it's not as immediate as, kind of as folks want, but it is there, that service is there.
I would agree, I think, with you or Zabet or both of you. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Keep plugging people with, we're here to help.
Yeah, the Facebook page for the district has a lot of good tips and connections for those issues posted. So that's always a good place if people don't know that the district has a Facebook page that posts all kinds of helpful hints like that. It's certainly worth, if you have an account, it's worth getting connected with. In addition to the direct, communication that the district puts out via email, et cetera. There's all kinds of goodies there too on the Facebook page.
Yeah, if you can connect to the Facebook page.
True.
Right. That's that age-old kind of conundrum. We want to survey the folks if they have internet connectivity. Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, same for email, I guess. If they can't get their Facebook page up, they probably can't get their email going either. Unless it's on their phone.
Yeah. But we do have students, and administrators would be able to tell you that they still have students that are, regardless of connectivity, they're not engaging. And I think Danny shared, that at the last board meeting. And I think that's important to know too, that access doesn't mean, that all the problems are solved, that all the challenges kind of go away. So even the kind of access, it just, but it sure doesn't help if you can't, if you can't log in. But they have teams of staff who are working every week to identify the students who aren't participating or not participating as they would like, or as that they would anticipate them to participate. And like Danny said, I think in a really interesting way, sometimes you can have 5 different people working with a family or a student, and they haven't been able to kind of make headway or make the kind of relationship that brings them back in and where they feel like they belong. And it's that 6th person, for whatever reason, they're the ones who are able to break through into that relationship and get that student to engage. So I see a lot of dedication towards that, and we're gonna just continue to monitor our kids, and we're doing so much of that just one by one right now. And I think, Toby, that's why when we're smaller like that, we can. It feels, when I speak with our administrators, that they are truly like, it is one family by one family by one student by one student. Counselors, it's a marvel to kind of listen to.
And teachers are trying to do that as well as they assess who's showing up for class or who's not participating. Well, actually, one tidbit I learned about is the GoGuardian tool, which is a tool that we use to that enables teachers to see what all the kids what they have open on their Chromebooks. They can see all the tabs that are open. So if they're watching YouTube, they can say, please shut down YouTube, or the teacher can actually go and close it. But it also provides, you can speak, do a video call, voice or chat through GoGuardian. And I've heard that some students actually prefer that, especially ones that are less inclined to speak openly in front of the rest of the class or turn their camera on. They might be not as confident or shy or just have a different learning style. And that GoGuardian has turned into this secret tool, or this special tool that has these additional strengths that no one anticipated before, but it's been another method to make those connections, those interpersonal connections that seemed so hard to do 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, to your point, that seems like everyone's trying every way possible to find ways to authentically engage with those students who aren't engaging in the same way or at the level that we hope and expect. It's a ton of effort.
Yeah. You may have, so if I can just touch base on hybrid planning, I'm going to develop a larger presentation, and our October 8th board meeting will be presenting with the board with schedules and data from the feedback that buildings collected from students, staff, and our community. And so right now, Danny and Danny's hybrid survey for families is open until Monday, and then Greg's, I believe, closes tomorrow. And Rebecca has already completed that cycle of feedback with her families. And so really the intent is then for the building teams to come, the building leader teams to come together and process that information. It does feel to us right now that there's kind of an emerging schedule. That's a preferred schedule. Once we do, once we're in a position to move to hybrid learning, we are in that schedule as an AB model that some folks have heard about, or that it could be a Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday with the day. Those details are still really kind of being talked through with our teacher teams. It's really important to know too that we're taking a really long lead time on any kind of major decisions to bring students back. Our community might see other districts in the area who have September dates, they have early October dates. We're really going to make decisions based on the science, based on the health and safety of our students and staff and community. That's number one. In the next, thing we're going to be making decisions to bring back our youngest students, at such a time when we feel like when it's safer to do so. But our focus is right now on small groups, really monitoring what that, the results of that. And then, bringing in kindergarten, a really controlled phase in, and then looking at first grade and second grade. But we don't have timelines for that yet. I'm beginning to learn, as soon as you set a timeline, you're almost dooming yourself to change it in some way, shape, or form. Many districts who have already gone out, there's been some questions about the efficacy of masks and things, and it's just like anything, new information can come, any minute of the day that can all of a sudden change your plans. And so I think waiting for the disease activity to continue to drop, to see it stabilize, to work with our staff and our community and our nursing services, Sarah Day is awesome. So that when we are able to make decisions about, if we come back, we have all the how questions answered and answered fully. We have a strong schedule and all the details built out around it. And so I'm going to, again, bring to the board on October 8th a larger presentation of the data, some of the decisions that have been made by the teams, the buildings, and some of the kind of step-by-step, aspects of that controlled phase-in model that we're gonna be putting in place. So, other than that, I can answer questions right now about what I do know, but you will find out more on the 8th as well.
Anybody have more questions on any of this information? All right, thank you, Slade.
Yeah.
All right, so the next issue is board member building site visits. And Bob and I had the pleasure last Tuesday, it was already last Tuesday, of meeting with Rebecca and John and Slade and being able to pop into some classrooms at Chautauqua remotely. And the miracle was that I was able to figure out how to do that and not get lost somewhere in cyberspace.
Both of you did a great job.
But it was really cool. We visited some 5th grade math classes and some kindergarten classes and talked about how things were going and in general and what some of the challenges were. And Bob, why don't you start with what your impressions and thoughts were, and then I'll back clean up.
Start with the B team here. I don't really have a whole lot to say, and I don't want to be a downer, but I'm going to be a little bit. It was for me very bittersweet. And I think every school board member in the country ought to do what Reagan and I did. We looked at young kids. Were they 2nd and 3rd graders?
Kindergartners and 5th graders.
And it was just beautiful to see these 7-year-olds or whatever they are fidgeting with their hair, looking at the ceiling, and doing what young kids do. That was the sweet part. But you see what the teaching staff has to do, and it's just it's extremely difficult. And I feel like they have been given an impossible task. And these young kids, what they really need is to be with other young kids. Learning social skills and things that we can't teach them online. And that's the downer part. But I'm reminded about all the losses from the pandemic, taking your kid to the first day of school, graduation, and this is just in the education realm. People are dying. I don't want to minimize that. But it was also sort of, I felt like the optimistic part was the old human spirit and the teachers of these young kids. And I single them out because it's obviously much easier if you're teaching a high school class, I would think. But just how the teaching staff of these young young children are rising to it and the impossible tasks that they've been given. So kudos to them. Sadness that I feel. End of downer.
All right. Yeah, COVID's definitely a downer. Well, no argument there. I think part of the cool thing for me was that we get to actually see the new learning platform of Seesaw, which I'd heard a lot about, but it's really kind of hard to understand what students are using without actually walking through some of it. And I was really impressed with how it facilitates easy communication with the children who are able to easily upload their photographs or drawings or calculations and get real-time feedback with the teacher during the class. I was impressed that there were 15 or 17 kids in those classes at the time we were there, so there was definitely participation, and it looked like school. I mean, they were little guys in the kindergartners, and they were bigger guys in the math classes, but they were answering questions, and they were unmuting to communicate with the teacher, and they were following along, and they weren't just running around their house chaotically. They were actually engaged. And one of the things Rebecca talked about was it was important for us to dial in at the start of the class session, because that's when the highest level of participation would be, because they don't expect kids to be on for the entire allotted time, and they're really flexible about being able to have off-screen time as well and build that into the curriculum. So that was good to know. And as Bob says, it's certainly not ideal. It's not what we'd want. And we hope to be able to bring those little guys back soon to be together. But for what's going on, and for the teachers who have got the overhead cameras going and are able to navigate and learn a whole new learning platform over the summer and engage it and employ it with the kids. I mean, I was extremely impressed with that. So like Bob said, it's the human spirit to persevere, and I think our people have done a good job of it and are doing a good job of it and are learning more as time goes on. As far as some of the challenges, a lot of them had to deal with some of the connectivity challenges that Slade was addressing there in his reopening presentation. Rebecca talked about going to do the home visits. I think when the principal and the director of IT will make multiple visits to your household to try and get you up and running, that shows a dedication that is not common in most public education. And we're grateful to be able to have that kind of engagement on the island with our small district. Doesn't mean they're able to solve every aspect of every problem, but there's certainly not for a lack of dedication and effort in that regard. So that was impressive. And I've seen several other incidental emails on the district email describing similar staff, going that extra mile to make the extra phone call, make the visit, deliver the books, whatever it takes to engage, especially with the elementary school kids who are, obviously suffering the most from the distance learning model. So yeah, I thought it was great. As great as it probably can be for now. And,
yeah,
I think that was definitely
I just had a good time seeing the kids.
And I appreciated it. Yeah, little kids.
Kindergartners, even fifth graders were a hoot, but the kindergartners especially. So can I just do a quick naming? Because those teachers, if you think about this, they're already on stage. They have to be on 24/7 basically when they're with their kids, and there's no downtime. And then all of a sudden, 4 or 5 people just kind of pop into their meets,
bomb their meeting.
And so not only are but they just went with it. But I'd like to give a shout out to Allison Reynolds, to Mrs. Tanner, to Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Lindsay, to Mrs. Long, and Mrs. Stearns for giving us the grace to come into their rooms. Hopefully it wasn't completely unannounced, but it was certainly a surprise to all of a sudden see all these board members and the superintendent in your room. So thank you very much. for sharing your work with us.
Well, and,
because
and,
it
the,
was
and the kids could see who are these people coming into our
Right,
class.
right.
So, and everyone handled it really beautifully. And again, we're really grateful for your indulgence in allowing us to do that.
Mhm.
Makes me reflect on a conversation I think we probably had a year ago or so, significantly pre-COVID, about learning management tools. And I remember some comment, I think Slade said that, yeah, they're really expensive. They take years to implement. The amount of training that you have to do is just Herculean. I mean, that's essentially a huge strategic shift that requires total dedication, which means you can't do other stuff that's a priority while doing that. And then March, bam, here we are. So the ability to pivot that fast and across the buildings with different tools and, do the individual reach out to kids and stuff is really astonishing. And I know that every school district's going through it with some degree of success or not, but it's pretty cool to hear your experience with a brand new tool, and that generally it was pretty good, and the kids are happy, and that required a lot of work.
Yeah. Do you remember who signed up for the next one, just offhand? Is it Toby? I think you're right. We're going to go to the middle school.
Yeah, I think so.
I might be on it too.
Late October,
Yeah, I think so.
22nd or something like that. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
I should. It's so funny when we looked at the planning of those. In my head, I still thought we're gonna
Right.
get in the car and drive up and get in the school
Oh, yeah.
and walk through the buildings. And I was like, right, what? How thinking about work? Where can I place that in? Now I'm sad that I missed the Chautauqua one since it was going to be online anyhow.
Yep.
I had that question the morning of, Toby. I'm texting Slade, wait a minute, are we
Right.
doing this online or yeah. So
I don't know why I thought that, because everything I do is online all the time anyhow. But oh well.
Mhm.
old habits die hard.
I just learned that it's Zabet and spring. So, okay. So there you go. Okay. So any other questions for the board site visit for the three of us?
Did you get any interesting questions from the kids, or?
Main question we got was, who are you?
Right. Right.
Yeah, we tried not to disrupt what they were doing too much,
Yeah.
since we're basically just bombing them.
Mhm.
Thinking about the site visits, last year I did one at Chautauqua, and there were a panel of fifth graders that were assembled. I think 5 or 6 of them. We did kind of a little round table.
Yeah.
And we actually did the same thing at McMurray last year too.
Yep.
That was fabulous.
That was great. That was really great.
Yeah. We can actually have a conversation, interact, and then, they have no filters. So then they're going to tell you exactly what they think, which is really exciting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll plan that for the next time. I know it was for this first visit. It was let's just kick it off, and
Okay, sure.
but we'll probably see some fifth grade on the second visit.
Okay. Alrighty. With that would bring us to the consent agenda. We have a motion.
I apologize. I had some questions about the contracts. Can we, were I here on time, I would have asked, pulled them out of the consent agenda, but with the board's indulgence, can we just look at the contracts?
Okay.
I just, where there was a list, as I recall, right? Could you click on the
link.
The link there, Jody? So, what's the 163,000? That's a lot of money. I'm just curious, what's that about, and how did we budget for that?
The ECAP program?
Was that what that is? The 163?
Yep.
That number is a lot higher than I recall. Is the ECAP program cost that much?
Mhm.
I didn't know that. I thought it was a 30-some thousand plus 30-some thousand for the second half in the budget.
No, there's quite a bit of staffing around ECAP, if you remember.
Is that what it was? So, okay.
Mhm.
And then turning down, that's fine. Turning down to the, could you scroll down? So the I'm curious about the two mentoring programs. What services are going to be performed there? And I mean, what are the deliverables and what are the
Sure. Are you familiar with the Journeyman and Sisterhood?
I'm familiar with Journeyman, less so about Sisterhood.
So they provide mentoring services for boys and girls, both in school and outside of school. And those monies are donated by Vashon Schools Foundation.
Okay. And it was all this, did we bid this out or was it sole sourced?
Say again?
Was it are these sole source contracts or do we bid them out? How did that work?
No, these are sole sourced, if that's the word for it. I'm not familiar with the word, but it's not, these aren't bidded. Like,
are we not required to bid the work or to solicit bids?
No.
You're sure?
I'm pretty positive. Yeah, anything under $25,000, don't we have?
You get I thought it was 2 phone bids or something. But hey, I could you report back? I'm just curious.
Sure.
if
Yeah, I don't believe there's anyone else that would provide circles. You know, these are very specific services. So, but I can follow up with you. No problem.
Presumably there are a number of ways to provide. I just want to make sure that we're running a clean process. That's all. So if you could just report back to, I thought we were supposed to bid this stuff, but if that's not correct, then my mistake. That's all my questions.
No problem. I'll get back to you.
Okay. Anything else? We motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second that.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Aye. We don't have any opposed this time. Okay. All right. Good. Then the consent agenda is passed, and that brings us to new business. Does anyone have new business they want to bring up?
I just wanted to go. Do you want to go ahead, Sabette?
You can. I'll just
I see Sabette's finger first.
I have more fingers, though.
Slade, I would love to piggyback off of what Danny was talking about late start, or starting later in for middle school and high school, and this seems to be a perfect moment if we ever go back to a schedule that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
Can we start to wrap our heads around that? Because as he said, this has been a great experiment, and it's thumbs up all the way around to have that later start. So I would really like to follow that up.
Okay. So what I'll do then is, Reagan and I can, reach out individually to the board members and see who is on the same page, and then we can make it if we have some consensus around this, then we'll put it as a discussion item.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I agree, Danny.
Bob?
He opened with that, right? So this may be the time.
Okay, so mine is I have this high level desire to have, it's probably a penchant for seeing the written word, of having something in writing about our procedures for getting stuff on the board to consider whether something gets on the agenda. We talked about this at the last board meeting, and I think it was said, you just suggest it and we work it out. And the reason I think it should be a written procedure is it gets you transparency and it gets you a little more intentionality. I had wanted to discuss cell phone policy and was advised today that the board members didn't want to talk about cell phone policy, that we had more important things to do. And I feel like that's not a process, that this needs to happen in school board meetings. And so if we just made it clear that if it's 2 votes or if it's whatever, something that's a little more concrete, I think it would certainly help me. And I think it would help improve our governance, because just doing things ad hoc, I think could have forestalled some angst on my part in the last 24 hours. And there are several things that I would like to talk about. I think there are opportunities to improve transparency and public participation. 3 or 4 ideas, 2 or 3 ideas, and I just want to know how we can get them on the agenda to discuss whether or not to act on them. And it seems to me, if it's not written down, it just gets very confusing.
Bob, do you have a proposal in terms of some language?
That would be great.
No, I'm saying, do you have any?
Oh, I could write it. I mean, I would want some direction from the board. I mean, I don't think, like, for example, 1 board member wanting something should be sufficient. Maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3, maybe it's 4. That's a discussion that we would want to have. But I think it's important that the rules of the road be written down.
Bob, you can use my late start as your guinea pig.
What's that? Could you?
I would like I'd like us to talk about a late start, and if it for the middle school and high school, and changing that start time for the schools. I also just want to clarify. I want to just clarify for people who are listening that you were specifically talking about cell phone use within the 5 of us during board meetings.
That's correct.
You're not talking about school policies. You're just talking about the 5 of us.
It could be policy. Where it resides is I'm ambivalent. I'm not ambivalent. I think I think it should be policy, but if it's a board practice on our board protocols page,
but
that's
you're
fine too.
You're not talking about cell phone use at the high school.
No, I'm not. I would never dive into that one.
In the past, we've kind of talked about the same topic at our annual retreat. I don't know if there's room in the upcoming one in October to do that, October 13th.
Reagan, you can weigh in on a process question, but I mean, if we wanted to say 2 board members, that's 1 sentence. Could be done very easily. I don't know that it warrants a whole lot of discussion. This is not a complicated question. It's just we have to agree on what the number is, in my view. Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 1? Or 5?
I don't think we're going to decide here. I agree with Toby. It's been a subject at the retreat, and that's kind of part of what the retreat's for, is to establish our norms of communication. So I think we should just take it up then and spend 5 minutes on it.
Okay, I'm down.
Yeah,
Sounds good. Okay.
All right. And I have a piece of new business as well. We've had some communication from community member who is interested in potentially changing the high school mascot from a pirate to some other mascot in regards of recognition of the current period we're in terms of social justice, and understanding that pirates may not have the same connotation for all groups of students in our schools, and may in fact have negative connotations for certain groups. So, I think that's a pertinent concern to address, and I'm not sure the best way to go about addressing it, but I think necessarily some community input would be informative about whether there's a similar like-mindedness within the majority of the community about doing that, and then if there is, we could determine a process for finding a new mascot if that's what we decided we wanted to do. So I guess not so much a board new business other than to make us aware of it, but an invitation to community members to weigh in on that subject to the board and to Slade, hopefully between now and the next meeting, so that we can assess whether there's a feeling that the time is now to make that change or not.
Thanks for bringing that up, Reagan. I remember that email coming out right before we started school, I think, and we got very busy and focused on getting school kicked off, and I had kind of forgotten about that topic. So thanks for.
Can we just be transparent that the community member was Hillary Emmer, who put a letter to us, and she requested that we address it, and so I'm I'm just, sometimes we speak anonymity, and I don't think she required anonymity. I just want to make sure that we are identifying kind of, we received a letter from Hillary, and I'm let her know that we were.
Yeah, I certainly want to give her I want to give her credit where credit is due. I should know if we wanted to publicly out her in our board meeting, but yes, it's definitely Hillary's idea, and I committed to her at that time that I would raise the issue in this meeting, and so I'm honoring that commitment, and I'm also interested in the response.
I think it's definitely time. I think I've been pretty clear on my views about having a white male, you know, murderer, thief as a mascot for a high school. So, but it's definitely, I mean, I'm just one person. And so we've got to, it'll be an interesting conversation.
There's so much more than that.
That's right, Bob Hennessy.
All right.
Let's adjourn this sucker.
Well, if there's no more comments, then we are going to go ahead and adjourn here at around 11 or 12 or something like that.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone,
and
for
thanks
coming.
for our public for joining
stuck
us
with us. And
Yep.
Thank you all.
yeah, thanks for contributing.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good
Keep
night.
safe out
All right.
there.